5-year government.
But why the Tories go up after the election?
For goodness sake, let's evaluate it properly when the next election comes.
Well, that's when it will be.
You will find that both coalition parties do very well as a result of having had the courage to tackle these problems.
Does that mean you'll be in coalition with the Tories again?
It does not mean that at all. We're an independent party. We shall compete at the polls when the election comes.
All right, Ian Hislop, you said you wanted to answer for Vince Cable.
Yeah, I'm just interested by the question. My answer to, what will be the position of the Liberal Democrats? Well, doesn't the question, shouldn't the question be what will they've achieved? I'm not that bothered if the Lib Dems aren't there as a party, if the country is in a better shape. I'm not sure if Nick Clegg does one term, we manage to cut the deficit, the fair cuts that have been promised ameliorate the worst cuts that might have been. If all that happens and growth is re-established, then if the Lib Dems disappear, who cares?
OK. I'll come to the other two members of the panel in a moment. Let's get the woman in the second row from the back there. Yes.
I think Mr Cable is in absolute denial if he thinks that the Lib Dems will survive after this. I know people that voted Lib Dem and are unhappy, to put it very, very mildly, that they went into the coalition very mildly.
And you think they'll remain unhappy, do you, regardless of what happens?
Definitely, I don't think...
All right, and you say in the fourth row?
Yeah, I wonder if Vince would remind us how many political parties he's actually been a member of over the years.
Well, I switched from the Labour Party, which I was active in for many years, into my present party. It was, as you know, the SDP, the Liberals subsequently
so
formed
a lot
the
of
Liberal
bed hopping has
So
taken place.
I've been Labour, and now I'm in the Liberal Democrats. I joined over a quarter of a century ago, and I'm totally committed to the party.
So you're saying he's... are you saying he's...
So which party will be next? BNP, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, don't be silly.
Who have you
left out?
Please don't be silly. Okay. All right, the woman in the front here.
Couldn't it be argued the Liberal Democrats have sold out their principles? There's two different complete perspectives. The Liberal Democrats want, no tuition fees, and the Conservative Party are probably going to increase them. Lots of students and young people voted for the Liberal Democrats because they promised that they would scrap tuition fees. How can you complete on that promise?
Well, I won't go to Vince again because he's been speaking quite a lot about this.
Well,
Caroline, no, Ian, hold on. Caroline Flint.
I'm sorry.
Well, as I watched some of Liberal Democrat conference this week and saw the backdrop swathed in blue with a tiny little yellow Liberal Democrat logo, and then I heard about stories let out by Number 10 about how Nick Clegg puts together IKEA furniture together with Dave Cameron. I think the writing's on the wall, particularly, I have to say. And I think actually Vince probably feels pretty uncomfortable with this. We have Liberal Democrats leaving the Liberal Democrats every week and joining Labour. A Liberal Democrat councillor in Liverpool has left to join Labour. A former Liberal Democrat leader of Liverpool Council has said it has left the Liberal Party in ruins in Liverpool, this coalition. And as I said before, there is no point making grandstanding speeches about tackling bankers when actually you are tackling this deficit, which Labour was committed to tackle, but you're going faster and deeper in a way that is affecting our economy, affecting people's livelihoods, and actually not creating the growth we need to make sure we don't go back into recession.
Well, it is.
Liberal Democrats and Conservatives have completely different values. And what's particularly galling now is to see Nick Clegg, the word has been mentioned, sold out. I think he has sold out. He's abandoned those values, and I feel sorry for Lib Dem supporters.
John Redwood, do you recognise that picture of what the Liberal Democrats have done?
No, I don't.
And what do you think their future is? Well, and do you care, or like Ian Hislop, would you be happy to see them go under?
When I said I would go under, what we've had, audiences like this for 20 years have said, oh, we're sick of two-party politics. We want the third party to have a say. We're sick of Labour, then Tory. Why can't we have three-party politics? We have three-party politics, and everyone says, oh, they've sold out.
John
I have a go now? Yeah.
The art of compromise.
John Redwood, Ian, please.
I think they do have a future, and I think the success of their future will depend very much on how well the coalition government works. I want this coalition government to succeed. I think a majority of the British people want it to succeed. And it will succeed if it deals with the deficit crisis and gets an economic recovery and makes most of the reductions in public spending by getting people into jobs instead of being on benefit. That would be a great win, which we're all working towards. And if the Liberals contribute to that, then I think people will be very pleased that they did it. I think the political parties for once rose to the challenge. It was a challenging election result for politicians who are used to being in parties and sticking to their parties and their principles. But I think the country needed a strong government. I think it was only possible to get together the Liberals and the Conservatives, giving the voting strength in the House. There weren't enough votes for Liberals to do a deal with Labour, and Labour were the party that just let us down and had just lost the election. So I think it was brave of both parties. They constructed a broader agreement than I recommended or thought possible. But I'm prepared to give it a fair wind, and I think a lot of the public are, because this country is still in grave danger, economically and in other ways. It needs a good, strong government, and I think we should concentrate on that, and then in 3 or 4 years' time we can work out the party politics on the back of it.
Well, thank you. Let's just remind the audience of the question that Michelle put. Can the Liberal Democrats survive as a political party when the coalition is over? And just hear from one or two more people. At the very back there, the person up there, and then I'll come to you, sir.
I think that history will repeat itself and that the Lib Dems will find that they won't be in power for a very, very long time because a lot of people voted for the Lib Dems in order to keep the Conservatives out of power.
OK, and you, sir?
Yeah, we're talking about two-party politics, three-party politics. We're talking about the mess that the banks have brought this great country of ours into. The one thing since the signing of the Treaty of Lisbon which has not been addressed is British sovereignty. No one is offering the British people the right. No one has given any politician a democratic mandate to play with fast and loose with the sovereignty, let alone the money. What is our birthright going to be to the future generations when you've played fast and loose with it?
Okay.
What do we do?
I'll take one more point from the man there with the spectacles.
Yeah, is it not responsible of the Liberal Democrats to keep a watchful eye, a mindful eye on the Conservatives at a time when the country is divided based on the votes at the last general election?
And you think they'll gain credit for this, do you?
I think they should do.
OK. Right, let's go on, because we've got a lot more questions to go through. Julia Wright, please. Julia Wright.
How does the government propose regaining police control over our streets while continuing with huge cuts to our police force?
Well, this is in the light of the Inspectorate of Constabulary report today, talking about concern that antisocial behaviour which was already prominent, 3.5 million, I think it was, incidents last year, taking up police time, and that if there are cuts in the police force, this will only worsen. Caroline Flint, your party was in power for the last 11 years or so, didn't solve this problem.
No, I wouldn't say we solved it, but I think we made a real effort to get a grip on it, and that's why we left government with more police officers, but also 3,600 neighbourhood policing teams around the country. And we brought in antisocial behaviour powers. Some were used better than others, but before there was nothing to tackle some of the antisocial behaviour in our communities. I would never suggest we've solved it. I would never say that any government could say we've solved crime, but we left office with crime down, but also some of those partnerships really starting to take a hold. And before I get criticised by John and Vince, we did make plans to make some savings in the police service through tackling some of the issues around the shifts and the overtime, through better procurement and other efficiencies. But actually, Theresa May has announced £1 billion more worth of cuts over what we were suggesting. And there's no doubt that that will bite into police numbers, and it could really bite into neighbourhood policing, which is, I think, starting to have a real impact in communities around the country.
You've shifted the blame for what happens next to the present government.
No, I'm saying they're cutting the services that people rely on.
You were in the Home Office. Alan Johnson was Home Secretary and said that he had to bear responsibility, absolutely, for the police not paying enough attention to antisocial behaviour. Do you agree? Did he fail in that sense?
No, I can.
He was wrong.
No, I think Alan is absolutely right. But I can remember going back beyond Alan being the Home Secretary, when it became very clear, particularly I think to Labour MPs, because we were hearing it from our constituents, about antisocial behaviour. And there was at that time no powers, no partnerships, no community police support officers to assist our police to tackle it. We passed laws, we gave resources to start to get a grip, working with local authorities and others. And what Alan was referring to, there was a period about a couple of years before the last general election where I think we did take our eye off the ball a bit, and he went back and grasped that.
What do you mean took our eye off the ball? You're in government. You've got, what are the figures? 33% of victims are intimidated if they stand up to yobs, and you say our government took our eye off the ball for 2 years?
What I'm saying...
What does that mean?
No, I said 2 years before the election, we identified that some of the priorities around antisocial behaviour were not being taken up as strongly. So Alan and others stepped in to get a grasp of it again, and that is why